कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य
Namaste, welcome to Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam, KYG. For this class, hopefully the last class for this fire episode, the fire element that we are studying. As always, all of these learnings are very mindful, so let us begin this class with 3 Ohms. As I said, the last few days have been extremely busy for us, so I haven't had time to really set things. So bear with me if I'm a little clumsy today in the class, but nevertheless, the topic, of course, will not be compromised. I know most of you are very busy with Diwali celebrations, and it's an auspicious night, and therefore I don't expect many to be participating now, but for those of you who have joined, welcome, and thank you for taking time to join. But I thought I must touch upon this very beautiful element and finish the offering of this on this auspicious evening. And I have a few more points that I had to cover, so I didn't want to drag it into the next week. I thought I will take time to finish it. So let us, without much ado, get into this slides. Let me see 1 second. There you go. All right. So for the past so many weeks, this is class 11 just on the fire element alone. And overall, we have covered about 43 odd classes talking about this fundamental principle. And we have barely touched the surface. As I always keep saying, there is really no need to, 1 second, let me adjust my clock. Otherwise, all right. There is no need to rush through these classes. There is no point in saying, all right, next class, when is it? I've finished already this, and go on a binge. You could, you're welcome to, but what happens is the retention becomes very less. So I urge you to consider these as learnings for life. I mean, you have to begin implementing at least some of this, if not all, in some form or the other, and begin to attempt these as part of sadhana. That is the whole point of the Kaivalya Marga. It is a marga, it is a path to oneness. It's a path to experiencing that expansion of consciousness. It is not philosophy. It is not, all right, I learned this text, what is next text, and what is this, and what is the technique, and it's not amassing techniques and knowledge, but it is actually implementing. Out of this learnings, what can I implement, and how can I go back and learn more? And so it is with that intention that all of these classes are being offered to you all. And it's being done with great pleasure. Honestly, I feel very privileged to be able to share this ancient wisdom in many formats. We have practicals like we did in the last class about Trataka, and I'll touch upon that. But I have learned it with great reverence, and I want to teach it the same way. And so that is how we started with Panchabhutas, the 5 elements. We have, after this, we have 2 more elements to go. And if you remember, we visited the Agni Tattva, the Shiva. Everything points to Shiva, meaning the one consciousness in which all of this resides. It's all about oneness. It's all about understanding the one thing that contains all of this. So that same Shiva there is a temple that's so old in Tiruvannamalai. We visited that temple. We took a tour in that temple. We went up the hill. It is a very fascinating place. And so we got glimpses of that as I showed it to you all. There were many learnings in that place, which I shared also through the videos from that place as I got inspired. And then we went on to many, many classes. In the last 2 or 3 classes, this is what we have done, and I just want to touch upon that. We talked about nourishing Agni, or the fire element. The fire element is in the belly. So we talked about nourishing the Agni element through kriyas. We had talked about it through mantras, through food, and through all of that. We talked about it through asanas as well. So we talked here, later we came to discussing this on kriya. So we talked about Udyana Bandha, the Agnisara kriya. So these two, of course, are easy for most people, at least to begin learning, right? Even if you have a big belly, don't feel diffident. Just begin to practice. The Agni will slowly help you. And of course, that's why I said we have to implement. So when we go back to the food and all of that, slowly bring that into the lifestyle. Don't make it too slow, because then we'll spend next 10 years just streamlining that. But try and get all of that in place, and then slowly what happens is these kriyas become the icing on the cake, if you will, because they really begin to trigger the deeper energies. For that, when the body is ready, then this just falls in place very beautifully. The Agnisara and Udyana Bandha. The way I practice it is when I do the bandhas and the kriyas, then within about 5 minutes, and of course the Nauli kriya which I do. So when I do all the 3 kriyas, bandhas, Agnisara and Nauli kriya. So Udyana Bandha is technically a bandha and not a kriya, but I just include it as part of that. So Udyana, Agnisara, Nauli. Udyana, Agnisara, we go back and forth. When I do it for 5 or 6 minutes, first thing in the morning when I get up and I go to the loo, I empty my bowels, and then while I'm waiting for the warm water in the shower, I quickly do these. I spend about 4 or 5 minutes just doing this first thing in the morning. And that begins to set my mind deeply absorbed. Then shower becomes an act of worship. I do that and I come straight to the yoga mat and do my practice. Even before I do the yoga class online in the morning, I have about an hour and a half of my own practice. So it's magical how just 5 or 6 minutes of kriyas really lifts your whole consciousness and puts you in that state. It's like a magic button, really. But for that to happen, there has to be the strictness in lifestyle really matters. And so that is why we are building this and learning it from all angles. Just practicing only kriyas, I don't believe can help as much as if we have a proper lifestyle, food and all of that in place. And then when we do the kriyas, then the body immediately responds. The nervous system immediately responds. The brain immediately responds. And the stomach, which is literally right in the center of the body, that begins to control, that begins to send the hormonal signals to the brain, and the brain begins to just carry out the commands given by the stomach. That is how I say stomach loosely, but the abdominal region where the Agni is. In modern science and in anatomical sense, we talk about digestive juices, right? We refer to that because that is immediately clicks within us. That, oh, in my abdomen is the digestive juices are there, they digest the food, and therefore that must be the Agni. Yes, that is. But the Agni element in general is a lot more there. We have to understand it as a subtle energy that causes the digestive juices to be in place. So that intelligence, if you will, when I say subtle, I'm talking of an intelligence that exists there. It's almost like a second brain of its own. modern science, modern medicine is beginning to understand. They're just touching upon it in the last 20 years. They begin to understand, oh gosh, there's a whole world, there is a whole nervous system actually residing in the stomach, which perhaps controls the brains. So there's a theory that is being explored. So we let them explore that. But I like to go back to the scriptures where Krishna could have said, I'm in this part of the body. He could have said, I'm in this part of the body, the chest. But I know I repeat this, but it's so important for us to ponder this. That the importance is because Krishna was given the prominence of being a god, right? In that scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. And then he speaks to us. And so in identifying himself with the Supreme Being, he says, Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva. I live in the belly. And so, in my heart of hearts, I believe that it is that fire that controls the brain. It is if this fire is in steady, if we understand the Agni element and fashion our lives after the Agni element, go back to the classes and all of that. Of course, that is also still touching the fringe of it, but that is enough for us to practice for many decades, if you will. So when we bring all of that into the practice, then it begins to trigger the higher chakras and in fact control the Sahasrara as well. And so that is how important this Agni element is. And so please study it with that intention and don't be satisfied with merely a theoretical understanding, a philosophical understanding of what the Agni element is. And in that context, I discussed the Trataka in the last class. What I shared in the last class, you will not find it in other videos. And I'm only saying this because people say, oh, nobody will learn it, nobody has the time, so I cannot teach that. I've visited ashrams where I've heard, people have practiced yoga for many decades telling me, you don't teach all that, nobody will come to your class. But my attitude has never been for attracting people or classes. I'm like, if everybody compromises because people don't want to listen, then the actual knowledge will be lost. So I'm putting it out there. Whether you like it or not like it, whether you can do it or not do it, it's up to you. But at least the knowledge is out there for those who want to really try. One young boy texted me that he sent me the picture of a beautiful lamp and he lit it for Diwali. He says, I'm going to practice Trataka from this lamp. And that is enough. That really lightens my heart because it shows that we are helping. For those who need it, the knowledge is there. So Trataka is a very, very powerful and a very beautiful practice. You don't have to do it every day. You can do it every 3 days, like I said last class, 8th day or the new moon nights like this, like the Diwali night you could start. So these are the kind of beautiful practices you can bring in. Enjoy it. There is nothing to be afraid of it. There's really no negative side effects to it. So we talked about Trataka, and in that we talked about how you sit in such a way that the tip of the nose, you're looking down, slightly down at the flame, which is the most relaxing for the eyes and the best way to introduce yourself to Trataka. I have not done Trataka for many years, off and on. I have not been regular as I was for many, many years when I was in the ashram. Because early in the morning in my room, I would light up the lamp and do that. Nevertheless, now that I am, at this age and my eyesight is slightly, I've been finally a month or two ago, we got prescription glasses, and I'm not very happy with them, but I'm going to try and see if I can bring Trataka back again, and see if that can truly help me slow down the degradation of my eyesight. Aging is natural, but we can always slow it down, and I'm going to try. I'll keep you posted on that. So we had Nasika Trataka, Madhya Trataka, where you stare straight on the flame. And then you have the more advanced where you're looking up into the flame and you do through the middle eye, the third eye. So these are the Bhru Madhya Trataka. And then we studied the Chandra Surya Trataka and the Chandra Trataka. Very beautiful practices. Please try them. Now, in the course of this Trataka, there is one very, very beautiful Trataka. I've kept it towards the last. It is not an alternative to these, it is an addition to these. All right? And that is called Bhava Trataka. Bhava Trataka. Since we are talking of Trataka, Trataka means focus. Where there is focus and concentration, there is heat. Where there is heat, Agni is there, right? That is why Trataka is there. So, when my eyes are focused, my mind is also, I'm assuming that the mind is also focused. The mind can't be somewhere else. I can't be thinking what movie should I watch while I'm looking at the flame. There is no use. Then the eyes, just a physical object is staring at it. But the indriya, the sense organ that is situated in the brain, is occupied with something else. So we have to link it and be in the moment, here and now, correct? So that is why Trataka is important. In Bhava Trataka, there is bhakti involved, there is devotion involved. How did I come across Bhava Trataka? I came across Bhava Trataka without even knowing I was doing Bhava Trataka. So this is how it happened. So in Puttaparthi, in Baba's ashram, Baba would come out for darshan in the evenings, and we would just finish our college, but teachers, lecturers, students, everybody would rush there. And we are all seated. He would come out, give his darshan, pick up a bunch of people to give his discourse and solve their problems and all. They call it interviews. So he would call them and go inside. So that would be about 45 minutes, an hour. After that, he would come out, then we would have bhajans. So I had about an hour or so before the bhajans began. So I would go into the bhajan hall, and there was a particular place I would sit, and there was a particular angle I could get to see the chair or the throne on which Baba would sit during bhajans. And so what I began to do was, because I wanted to learn how to meditate, so all I wanted to do was I sat there and I began to memorize how did he look yesterday as he sat on the chair. What was it that he did yesterday as he sat on the chair? And I would look at the chair and visualize him sitting there. And in that visualization, I'm looking at the side because that's how it was. I used to be in a side, and the chair used to be at an angle. So I would look and stare at the chair for a while, and then close my eyes, and then begin to, with my bhava, I would recreate the scene. Then bhajans would come. When the bhajans would start, Baba would come and sit. Then I would begin the other Trataka, where I would simply memorize him physically from top to bottom. I'll just look at his hair, his face, memorize every feature of his face, come down and the folds of his robe, the chest, with the way the folds went into his armpit, the length of his arm, where he would rest his arms. There were little flower bouquets on the chair those days, so those on which he would sometimes play with those flowers, little flower bouquets, round ones. And then the belly, then his robe all the way down to the feet and the footstool. And I would be completely lost. In fact, playfully, Baba would actually, he sent word actually once through a senior professor. He said, ask this fellow, why is he sitting there and staring at me like that? And of course I replied, I said, if I don't look at him, what else am I here for? And I believe he laughed at it and he liked what I said. Nevertheless, that was what my practice was. For 3 or 4 years, that is all I did. And then it became a very natural thing. So the next morning in my yoga practice, I would once again review, as we call it in our education system, right? Revision. We review what we learned. And so I will try and summarize that experience of half an hour into a 10-minute meditation where I will say, okay, what did I see? How was his robe? What color was his robe? What was his hair look like? So for me, and I'll completely lose myself into that meditation, and that became Trataka. That became Trataka. Trataka is one-pointed, focused attention, where the eye is focused. Now here in Bhava Trataka, the mind's eye is focused. The physical eye can also be focused, which it was when I look at Baba or Baba's picture. But it's more important that that picture gets imprinted in the mind's eye, and therefore we should be able to visualize that in the mind's eye. Now, I'm just saying Baba's example because that's how I learned it. That's what comes to me when I do Bhavatrataka. Because for me, all the other gods, goddesses, they're all symbols, right? For me, I don't want to restrict those ideas into a form. I use a form as a stepping stone. But for me, form, a divinity in form is my guru, my Sadguru. That's all. Anything else is only symbolism. Shiva is a symbol, Devi is a symbol, and all those statues that we have, they're all symbolic representations of the cosmic powers. So I can't reduce those to a form in my head. So I can't do Bhavatrataka there. But for me, it's very easy to do Bhavatrataka on my Guru's form, and therefore I tune into it. Now it's entirely up to you. This is what I'm sharing here is the way I did it. I'm not saying this is how you should do it. Not at all. You could choose the deity of your choice. You could choose a figure of your choice. You can simply take a rose and do Bhavatrataka on a rose. Any object you could take and do Bhavatrataka. Other than flame. The flame is the original Trataka. And that's why I said don't substitute this for that. Find time to practice that. That at least you can do once a week, twice a week or so. But this Bhavatrataka you can do for 10 or 15 minutes almost every day if you can. You don't change the object, you stick to the one object till that object is firmly imprinted in your mind. And then allow that object to come to life. Like if it's a rose, watch it blooming, watch it, you will feel the smell, the fragrance of the rose. The whole thing comes alive in your mind. And you are completely lost in that. That if it's a person you are doing the Bhavatrataka on, like your guru, or there is a form of a god that you choose, then you enter into that. First get the form alive, then you enter into a conversation with that form. Then that's it. There is it takes you into a very different plane altogether. When along with other mantras that we do, the chakra meditations that you do, along with other sadhanas, when you do Bhavatrataka and all, it becomes extremely, extremely powerful. It becomes very, very real. That object that you are focusing on, visualizing on, begins to manifest in your life. It does. If it's a god, then you'll begin to see in dreams. You'll begin to converse. There will be a conversation, and suddenly you will notice that a door to a dimension beyond you. Beyond you means beyond you and I. When I say is beyond the mind's concept, because mind is restricted to senses. The door begins to open. Then you don't need somebody to tell you you're having spiritual experiences. You will know it. I am sure we do get glimpses of that. If you're listening to these classes with all seriousness, and if you've been practicing spirituality and spiritual practices, you know what I'm talking about. But what is lacking is the consistency in those experiences. It comes and goes, right? But then when you do these kind of Bhavatrataka, along with the other Trataka, along with the whole overall lifestyle, if you go back to the earth element, we talked of judgment and this and that. So it's all the elements falling in place. We are fine-tuning these, right? As we go to the subtler elements, it becomes more and more fine-tuning. So in this, Agni is about vision. And when you visualize something, you are invoking the Agni element in your body. That is why visualization as a technique is very powerful. You've heard this even in modern psychology and psychiatry and counseling. People say, let's just visualize you're on a sunny beach and you're somewhere in a happy place, or there's a calm lake, something. They'll paint a picture and they'll give you a chance to visualize, vision, right? Eyes, Agni. Eyes are related to Agni. So anytime you're visualizing and you bring in energy into that vision, then Agni comes into play. And when Agni comes into play, he brings it to manifestation. Because he pulls the consciousness up, and then we are able to go to Akasha, and then from Akasha create reality. So we have to be careful on what we visualize and then give energy to that visualization. Passing thoughts, fleeting thoughts, all those, don't worry. I mean, like if I'm sleeping or thinking and I'm a little loose in my thoughts and I suddenly think, oh, these people are going somewhere, I hope they don't meet with an accident or something, and in my head I visualize something, I say, nah, I don't want to think about that. Just ignore it, right? So you don't give energy to it. Those kind of things will come and go, might come and go, correct? You just ignore, because there is no agni behind it, there is no heat behind it, there's no fuel behind those kind of visions that pass by. The negative ones I'm talking about, they don't have any effect. But when you give any of those visions, good or bad, when you give agni to it, in other words, when you add emotion to it, and you say, oh my God, I don't want to think such things. Oh God, why did such a thought come to me? I don't need to think like this. I should think positive. And I'm so afraid now. I'm adding a lot of energy. I'm creating a lot of heat. And that vision then begins to get settled. So don't visualize or don't give energy to visions that you don't need. Rather, set time to simply lose yourself. So it is good to be a daydreamer. That's good news, right? We all liked it when we were children. There were many things we saw as children, I guess. And we might have forgotten that. But at that moment, we created that through our vision, and that vision became a reality. Maybe we saw fairies in flowers. Or maybe we talked to them. Maybe we say children have that imaginary thing. But for them, that child, it's not imagination. He's in that world. He's in that dimension. So his Agni is creating it for him. We have the opportunity to recreate that. And that is not a false reality we are creating. We are our assumption that this is real is so strong that we feel anything outside this is unreal. So we say, oh, you're just doing an escapism. Come on, come back to reality, face the world, and all. We say that. We will keep that kind of discussion for another occasion. But when we begin to focus and visualize beauty in a situation, the beauty becomes more and more real. So it is in that context I'm presenting Bhava Trataka. I learned it by looking at Bhagwan Baba. And then I realized how beautiful, how powerful it was, because I drew him closer and closer to me and me to him, and we created a very powerful bond which lasted more than 15 years and at a physical level. And then now, of course, it will last many lifetimes. There is no doubt about it. That is the power of Bhavatrataka. So think about that and begin to harness that path, the idea of visualizing something. Go into absolute details of that visualization, whatever it is that you're visualizing. And when you're visualizing something, if the emotions that come, you have to silently observe the emotions. If there is joy coming in, if there is peace coming in, happiness coming in, go right into that without any worries. But if you're visualizing something and at some level there is a disturbance, only you will know this. For example, if I had to visualize, let us say, Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam as an ashram somewhere. So I am visualizing a beautiful place by the ocean and the mountains and the hills, greenery all around. It fills me with joy. And so when I fill myself with joy, I allow that vision to simply present, and I go into that, into a fantasy world, if you will. I will go into that. Every moment there is joy, 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 joy. And I come back feeling very blissful. Now, if I go into, I'm just giving you an example. So if I go into a visualization, Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam as an ashram. Oh wow, beautiful land, beautiful. It's a beautiful island, green, and there is blue waters. All the 5 elements are in plenty. And then if I start feeling, when is it going to happen? Why am I stuck here in this cold Cleveland? oh gosh. And if I start bringing in that kind of thought, even if it creeps in, then my emotions begin to play a negative impact. And that mars the vision. It's like you're doing a beautiful painting on a canvas, and then once in a while you take some weird color and just spoil your own painting. Then what happens is it impairs your ability to visualize. And therefore, what is left in our consciousness is a broken image, a broken vision. And that broken vision is what manifests in our lives. That is how powerful Agni is. That is how powerful that Agni helps visualization, and visualization creates reality. So, if visualization is accepted today, they say draw a home of your dreams. Draw it in all details, picturize it in all details and all of that, right? If that is so powerful, yoga has already understood this through the power of Agni. So we're going to the very source and understanding what is that. And so merely doing visualization techniques on a board won't help. You have to understand Agni Tattva as a complete package. Then practice all of that, Trataka, asanas with that, and all of that we discussed in the last 11 classes. Think about that. And if your lifestyle surrounds and begins to respect Agni as an element from the bottom of your feet, pit of the stomach, eyes, and then only that visualization as a technique will also fit into the overall picture. It is one element, is one part of the broad equation, but nevertheless a very beautiful part, a very powerful part of the equation. If you have heard of stories, and I suppose most of you have, from the if you have India in your background and culture, we have heard so many stories of yogis doing austerities and tapas and the gods manifesting in front of them and so on and so forth. What is that? What is that? It is the power of visualization. They brought in the sound, mantra, that we talked about, Agni and mantras, nourishing Agni through sound. We talked about that in a few classes. So they bring that in along with a very strong, strict lifestyle. They begin to cultivate this powerful heat. That's why tapas is tapaha. Tapaha means heat. Heat of your tapas melts the divine, and then the divine manifests. So that is the poetic way of saying how if you harness the energy of Agni, then really there is nothing that you cannot do in your life. Anything that you want, you could materialize in your life. But then Agni element requires tremendous discipline. Think about that. Don't jump and make up your mind, or I don't want you to leave these classes feeling guilty. All of that is part of the learning. But just listen first and say, wow, okay, I didn't know all of this. So let's see, how can I focus on Agni? Where am I losing the Agni element? Right? Then you will understand how that Agni, when it is burning very well in the body, then water from down gets converted into electricity. Earth from the Mooladhara begins to burn, and everything is being pulled upwards. And then the journey is a very amazing journey. So that was Bhava Trataka. So how do you practice it? Take a name, take a form. And in this case, don't worry about the mantra or the breath and all of that. Just go into the form, begin to converse with the form, begin to create the form, begin to paint and draw the form. Get it more and more clear. If there's anything that is missing, which is not clear, like the eyes in the form, then when your normal everyday thing, just pick up some pictures or create those eyes in your mind. So, okay, I need to practice this during Trataka. I need to exactly visualize this in the Trataka. Then in the Trataka, go back and apply that, the picture that you saw, apply those eyes to your form. Create that. You're the sculptor. You sculpt the form. You are the painter, so you paint the form. You are the artist. You draw it. You can do it, right? And then you will find that you are able to bring that form into reality. So please consider Bhava Trataka as a wonderful supplement to all the other practices. What we do normally is we take only one and we forget everything else. And then that one just becomes, after a while, the just brain reaches a plateau and that's it. And then So that one doesn't really yield any results, because the rest of the life, the Agni is completely loosened. Like if my diet is completely out of sync with my lifestyle, my meditations after a point will go nowhere. Then what do? I sit back into a philosophy and say, oh, God is, wait, let us see, it's all His will, He will take care of it. And we kind of put a twist in the name of, in the garb, if you will, of bhakti, in the garb, in the disguise of devotion. We tell ourselves, oh, it's all God's will, who am I to control? And therefore I will just go on. It is the mind's way of cheating you into believing that somehow you are doing your best, and there is a God who's going to somehow bless you at some point. We have to wake up from that falsehood, because that God whom we are talking is in you. And why would any God refuse to reveal Himself to you? It is because of our inability to cleanse ourselves in order to be able to receive. That is why it is. And so in order to cleanse ourselves, so that our body, our mind, our nervous system and everything is able to receive that higher consciousness, energy, and contain that in our practice, we begin to understand these elements properly. Alright, so that was Bhavatrataka. And then in continuation with that, Bhagavan Baba has taught Jyoti Dhyana. And for those of you who follow him, this is being taught to the children of the Sai education schools, the weekend schools, where you look into the flame. Trataka you do initially, you close your eyes and take that flame and pass it to different parts of the body. So that is Jyoti Dhyana. To be very honest, I tried this for 2 years, and for me to able to take that flame and pass it throughout the body didn't work. The moment the flame entered here, I would feel my whole body is lit up, and so there was no reason for me to take a flame and go around. And so for me it would just stop there. That was my experience. That was the moment it touched this, my whole body will be feeling like I felt the warmth in my whole body will light up, and then I would just enjoy that. So if you would like to read about it, learn about what Baba's version of Jyoti Dhyana is, I would suggest that you Google it. But in general, what he said is take the flame into the third eye, and then from there pass it on to different parts of the body. Pass it on through your arms, through your feet, to your different parts of the body. Feel divinity blessing, nourishing, cleansing different parts of the body. So try that if that works for you. That is the Jyoti Dhyana. That is in continuation with the Bhavatrataka. This can also be considered as part of the Bhavatrataka, because once I take the flame in, then it is Bhava. Bhava means my mental faculties now create that flame and I'm going to take it in. So that is a continuation of the Bhavatrataka. A very beautiful way to meditate. Whenever we meditate on light, remember light has never scared anyone, correct? I know on a Saturday morning when you don't want to get up early, the sunlight is not that friendly. But other than that, we don't really feel, oh my gosh, there is a light being lit. We don't feel that. Light goes off, then we feel it. So flame, in the deepest corners of our mind, flame always means, a flame means a light, a lamp, always brings in a sense of peace, calmness, stillness, quietude, equanimity. All these kind of words come to me when I think of a lamp. And you do, I'm sure, think of the same things, right? So meditation on the lamp is a very, very powerful and a very beautiful way for the mind to experience light, wisdom, and equanimity. Then comes meditation. So now you see how we are going. It's all the same thing. So when do we practice this Bhavatrataka, which we call meditation, because it's slowly now from concentration, it will automatically go into meditation, okay? The ideal time for this kind of bhava meditation is twilight eyes, early in the morning, even Trataka, early in the morning, or in the evening, the twilight hours. Sandhya. Sandhya is the meeting point where it is neither fully lit nor dark. Dawn and dusk as we know it. So dawn, at the time of dawn, just before the sunrise, when it is the darkest part of the night, ideally 48 minutes before sunrise. That is Brahma Muhurta. 48 minutes before the sunrise. So at that time, you could really begin, you could do these practices. And 48 minutes at the time of sunset, after sunset, you could do this. So these are the two times of Sandhya time you could practice meditation. Why? What has that got to do with Agni? Very simply put, where is Agni in your body? Like I just started this class, Aham Vaishvanaro, Agni is in the mid part of your body. It's neither up fully nor is Agni down. Right in the center of your body, the central portion, the midsection of your body, the fire element is. So we invoke Agni when it is neither fully day or fully night. That's the right time to invoke Agni. Why? Because in the Agni will not become too much or the Agni will not be too less. That is why yoga practices, Agni Sara practices, all the Kriya practices are done first thing in the morning. I mean by like at the time of dawn. So at that time of dawn, it's not day, it's not night, it's that perfect time where Agni is slowly awakening. That midsection of the body is represented by the two Sandhya periods. Now, if you say, can I do on an empty stomach at 12 o'clock in the afternoon? You could, but that is not ideal because there the Agni is very highly prevalent. Then it's difficult to control that kind of practice. So when you do it in the dawn, at the time of dawn or dusk, preferably dawn, because that time it's easy, the stomach is empty, you don't have to think about food, no phone calls are going to come to you at that time. So that's a good time to finish it off, right? So dawn is always ideal. And like I said, I think it was the last or previous class, when you do at dawn, then the stomach secretes very good hormones for the brain to be nourished with, and you carry that into the entire rest of the day. So dawn is the first alternative. If not, then dusk is a good alternative. So these are the two times. Because the Agni element is in the midsection of your body, choose that time which talks about Sandhya, right in the middle, dawn and dusk. So this is why we practice meditation in twilight hours. And then of course we talked about the Drishti practices. Even if you don't have a flame, you could simply focus. If you don't want to think anything, you don't want to think of Bhavatrataka and this and that. If I were to teach this to somebody who is very, very new to this whole concept, then I would say first start staring at the tip of your nose, or even take an object and simply place it in the front and stare at that object. Look into that object. Study that object in depth. Maybe it's a diamond ring, maybe something that will catch your attention. That's why they used to have crystal. Crystal catches your attention, right? Then you begin to observe the shape of the crystal, light that is reflected on the crystal, and everything on that. You meditate on the crystal. The clarity of the crystal begins to reflect itself, and the mind gets cleared of clogs, and mind gets cleared of confusion and doubt and fear and anxiety. It gets cleared because it draws that quality of the crystal, begins to exhibit the quality of the crystal into itself. So there are such beautiful practices. So you could just stare at the tip of your nose, you could stare between the eyebrows, and or you could stare at any object, physical object, which goes into the Bhavatrataka. So I did not put that here. Whenever I take an object, a picture, a statue, a symbol, a drawing, and I begin to focus on that, begin to study that with intention, with focus, concentration, and a deep intent to become one with it, then know that the quality of that, whatever is there in my subconscious, unconscious mind, I have ascribed certain qualities to that. Those qualities begin to arise within me. So if I were to meditate on Hanuman, whatever is my belief about Hanuman will slowly once again be revived in me. And that is why we have to be very, very mindful of what we are bringing up in our visualization. What is it that we are using for Trataka? All right. So with these, I think this was it. And yes, this is pretty much it. So it is, let me come back to myself. And so it is with this that we will end this study of the fire element at this point. We will revisit these at a later stage from a different perspective if necessary. But I think we have enough homework to do, enough room for thought, enough room for practice, enough room for contemplation, deeper understanding. You can take each one of these topics and do your own research and come back. And as we go into perhaps next year and as we go later, I will go more deeper into the into habits of food and things like that more, because those are the things we have really created a web and got caught into it completely. We are caught into it literally as a generation I'm talking of. Of course there are exceptions, but then we are caught into that. And how do we break free unless we begin to share that knowledge and say, wait a minute, wake up, this is not right, what we are doing is not right, we have to change it. Somebody has to do, like they say, who will bell the cat? So I'm hoping to do that. Let's see how the universe helps me with time and resources and all of that. But we will come back to this again and again. But right now we have established a foundation. We have established a basic foundation for the earth element, for the water element, and with these 11 classes, we have established the foundation for understanding and shaping our lifestyle so that we begin to revere, worship the fire element, the Agni Tattva. I am very grateful that you are all giving me this opportunity and to share these thoughts, this kind of knowledge that has really blessed my life, Maya's life, and therefore we want to share that. And thank you for giving us this opportunity. Thank you for allowing us into your homes. Continue staying blessed. Continue staying inspired. Let me end this class with 1 Om and 3 Shantis. I don't have Maya today to help me, so you can see how lost I am. But nevertheless, I'll put on the Shruti and thank you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.